The Arrowverse's Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover is upon us, and Part 1 didn't pull any punches. I'm Laura Prudham, and I'm joined by our resident superhero experts Jesse Shadeen and Lauren Galloway to break down the biggest moments from the Supergirl installment of Crisis. We'll be talking full spoilers, so if you haven't watched, make like the Flash and Vamoose until you've seen it. Alright guys, let's get into it. So Oliver is dead.
He is.
What did you guys think of that? Were you surprised that we got to that point so early?
Yeah, I think it was the timing more so than the actual event. Mark Guggenheim, the producer, kind of spoke to this at the Q&A afterwards. He said that because they've been teasing Oliver's death for the past year since last year's crossover, that the only way they could surprise us was the timing of it.
It worked. What did you think of it, Lauren?
I was really surprised because I think, like most people, I thought it would happen at the end of Crisis,
right.
Potentially being the, I am Oliver Queen kind of moment. And to hit that with us so quickly just reminded me that the stakes are really high.
Yeah.
And that even though some of the shows might be renewed and we might know a little bit about where they're heading, that doesn't mean that we can't lose key characters.
Very true. So how do you feel about how it was executed? Did you kind of feel that it was effective? Do you wish they'd done anything differently about it?
I liked it, and especially with the episode opening with the scene where it seemed like two major characters, Superman and Lois, were destroyed in that antimatter wave. I think they needed a follow-up where that actually happened and a character did die.
Yeah.
I felt like it was heroic. I felt like it was Oliver. Stephen Amell even tweeted this line a couple days before the episode, but the Monitor says something like, there's no time left. And he says, well, there's still people here. And the Monitor says, well, yes. Well, then Oliver says, well, then, we're going to stay.
Yeah.
And I think that just proves how far he's come because he's been fighting for his own city for so long. And now he's fighting for an entire Earth.
Yeah.
And that probably stems from him watching the destruction of Earth 2, which we saw in Arrow this season.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's had time to kind of process the stakes. And he's willing to put himself literally in the line of fire. And that image when they pull him through the portal and he's just burnt to a crisp head to toe. I mean, it's heartbreaking because as a character, I love Oliver Queen, but at the same time, he's right.
Yeah.
Just to give it his all.
Yeah. Yeah. He's earned it. It's a very earned moment. I love that. You kind of mentioned the destruction of Earth 2 earlier this season, but we also saw the destruction of Earth 38, Supergirl's Earth, in this episode, which I feel like we've kind of known is coming for a while. The kind of point of Crisis is to amalgamate all of these, you'd assume, at a certain point, since that's kind of where the comics came from. But how did you guys feel about that big moment?
I think you needed something like that to sort of set the stakes for the crossover going forward. And if you compare it to the comic books this is based on, you always kick off a big crossover like this with a major death, and they did that on a personal level with Ollie, but also destroying this entire world that we've gotten to know over the course of 5 years.
Yeah.
That hits pretty hard and lets you know the stakes going forward.
Yeah, I dug it. What about you, Lauren?
Yeah, it was sad and it was hard to watch, especially as Kara was watching it happen.
Yeah.
And the fact that she felt powerless, that there was nothing she could do. But I like the kind of rallying force of aliens and humans coming together to create this giant Noah's Ark of, evacuation, because we've seen so much human-alien tension on Supergirl. I felt like that was a nice note to show in the Crisis that during a crisis, people come together, and you can't always save everybody, but at least you can save some people. And they say in the episode how many they save. It's
3 billion.
like 3 billion. So they
All
save
right.
about half of Earth 38. My question is, where are they going to put all those people?
And finally then, what are your predictions for episode 2 going into it? What do you think we might see? Or even the crossover beyond, now that Ollie is seemingly off the board?
Well, part of me has to wonder if Ollie really is off the board, just because
It's so early.
Yeah, it's so early, and Stephen Amell's such a bankable star. I feel like they want to have some way of including him in the future episodes, and that just makes me think that as they work towards introducing the Anti-Monitor, that maybe he'll be the one to bring Ollie back, and now he'll be a villain.
Good theory. I like it. What about you, Lauren?
I want to know how Barry's going to feel about this, because he's the one that is supposed to die, or at least he believes that.
Yeah.
And I know that Barry is going to have an issue with this, and I just want to see how he reacts.
Yeah, it's good.
Also, I thought it was beautiful that Mia got to say goodbye to Oliver.
Yeah.
Because in her timeline, her father died and she never knew him.
Right.
And so if he is dead and if he stays dead, at least she got to be there at the end.
True.
Yeah, I really like how this was able to build on the previous episode of Arrow, which it almost seemed like a series finale in itself, the way they sort of tied up the loose ends and gave Ollie that last happy moment with his daughter.
Yeah. Good point. And we won't have to wait too long because the next episode is just the next day. So hopefully answers are coming. That's what we thought of part 1 of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So share your reactions and theories in the comments. Let us know what you thought of it. And for more Crisis coverage, check out Jesse's part 1 review and refresh your memory of how we ended up here with our Road to the Crisis explainer. Bye guys, thanks.